And you have the...
Yes.
All right, welcome back. We are coming out of closed session. Was there any action to be taken out in closed session?
Yes, Mr. Chair, at this time, I move to approve the settlement of McSorley versus County of Lake ETAL in the amount of $65,000.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right. And so with that, we will move on to our 5.3. Adopt resolution amending resolution number 2025-76, establishing position allocations for fiscal year 2025-256, budget unit number 1903, Department of Public Works, Human Resources.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, we're good. All right, go ahead, Pam.
I am on. So we are asking for you to amend a resolution for the position allocation for Public Works by creating a Deputy Public Works 1 and a Deputy Public Works 2. Oops. And I need to give you the updated job description because there was a small error in the Deputy Public Works 2 as it said not required to have a license, and they are required to have the engineering license. Let me give you this.
Johanna, could you display it, please?
Sam, can you make me co-host again?
Yeah.
My computer restarted.
Can I add on Granicus? It states Trinity County on both.
Yes.
Not on the paper, but when you pull it up on Granicus, on each one of them.
I'm not sure how that happened or why it says that, but it's for us. So we are correcting the classification for Deputy Public Works 2 to have the licensed civil engineer, State of California license. Any questions?
Sam?
Sam?
Can you make me co-host?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Do our engineers use their licensing for projects? Do we actually go out and engineer them and put our stamp on those? I know that our past one did not. We seem to be operating well right now. So do we need to have a licensed engineer for that position if they're not using their licenses to engineer the jobs?
I will defer this to Ms. Parker.
Go ahead.
Hi, yes. I actually was going to ask you to call Lars since he's been meeting with the engineers over the past 2 weeks. They may be engineers, but they may not have their seals because they're just starting in the field. And so it would be, behoove us to have a person with a seal. And you may recall Lars said he did have, his seal, but he hasn't used it in 10 years because he hasn't had to in his current position. So again, if you have additional questions regarding that, feel free to reach out to him when he returns.
Yep, what I had understood was our past engineer in this department refused to use his
The department head did, because that's not normally what a department head does, just like Lars doesn't use his seal for his department either. He's in management.
Okay.
And the reason we have 1 and 2 is to allow us flexibility, so that if we do attract a 1 without the license, they could get the license and we could promote them to a 2, or we can hire a 2 with a license.
Did that answer?
Kind of. What I was getting at was whether if we send these out for bid and we have other engineers doing that work and we are not putting our seal on it, did we need that position?
I really am not qualified to answer that question.
That's for Lars still, I think.
That's a large question,
Yeah.
okay.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Just a quick question, I guess more of a clarification. We're deleting 2 positions. One is the Public Works Assistant, and the other one is the Deputy Public Works Director. We already have a Public Works Director 1, and we're adding our administration.
Yes.
Our 1/2 administration, and then we're adding another Deputy Public Works Director 1, 2. So we're deleting 2, adding 1. Are we changing anything in the near future in the budget for salaries, since we're deleting one entire salary to be placed somewhere else within the budget for Public Works? Is that something that's coming in, or that hasn't?
That hasn't been fully discussed yet.
Okay. Because I feel like there's salary savings here if we're not adding anything else, and it's not a equilibrium, so.
All right.
And I think, just to let you, the board know that we are fully evaluating the functionality and capacity of the department right now, so I can't answer that question. Okay.
Okay.
All right, I will open it up for public comment. Bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the amended resolution number 2025-76, establishing position allocations for, I guess I offer the resolution as amended. Let me rephrase that.
And, Mr.
Authorize the
Chair,
chair
if
to
I
sign.
may, just for clarification, are there amendments needed to be made in the resolution that was posted, or are they in the job description referenced?
They're in the job description.
That would be them.
All right, resolution has been offered.
Aye.
I don't think it's on. Oh, okay. Supervisor Sabatier,
Thought you were trying to remember my name. Aye.
Supervisor Rasmussen,
Aye.
Yes.
Yes. Resolution passes 500. Thank you. All right, next we will move on to our 5.6. Sitting as the Board of Directors for the Lake County Watershed Protection District, review and approve just compensation estimates for the purchase of properties within the Middle Creek Flood Damage Reduction and Ecosystem Restoration Project, and authorize the Chair of the Board of Directors to sign the approval. And this was pulled by Betsy Kahn. I know Dr. Apadier was here earlier. I don't know if he was, okay. First, we'll open it up to Betsy to have her address why she pulled the item. And I know she stated something, but we'll let her elaborate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, my concern is that I'm familiar with the particular parcels involved. I understand the necessity to purchase properties to complete the Middle Creek Marsh flood damage control and ecosystem restoration project, and the fact that there are some unwilling sellers. And I believe that the committee and staff have been working with the state of California since we cannot use eminent domain to acquire those properties, to get additional funding. And in this case, I'm guessing that the conversation was came to the conclusion that additional funding was needed, and that funding would have to come from somewhere over the market rate of the parcels. My concern is that the agenda item does not include a memo that explains that and shows the map of the parcels and explains why they are necessary for that just compensation addition. Had there been a technical memo, I wouldn't have asked.
That's Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. All of these were willing sellers. This has been a long time in the works between getting their properties appraised, getting the state of California to approve the appraisals. So all of these are approved uses of our grant funding. What you're speaking of did occur in the Middle Creek Restoration Project Committee. That memo and that board item will be coming back to the board probably around mid-August, maybe a little bit later, but I know that it will, we wanted to see some changes in the letter that we had drafted, and that final letter will be brought back to the Middle Creek Restoration Committee for final approval. And then afterwards, we'll have that conversation about the non-willing sellers. But all the ones that are here are willing sellers that will be utilizing the grant funding, hence the approval from the state of California. I hope that helps.
Yes, go ahead and unmute. Okay.
Well, I think I understand, and thank you for addressing the question.
Okay. Thank you. Any other public comment on this? On Zoom? Okay. Supervisor Sabatier, I'll close public comment. Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, I think that it was mainly the word of just compensation that may have confused that, but again, we also have to have just compensation based on appraisals. This is not based on, I can't think of the word, all of a sudden.
Appraisal?
Of taking the property in a different way.
Oh,
than
eminent domain?
Eminent domain. So the just compensation, I think, is what was the confusing portion of this. But this is the same way that we've done all the other properties, hence the grant funding. If there's nothing further, I move to approve moving forward with the offering of purchasing of properties within the Middle Creek Flood Damage Reduction and Ecosystem Restoration Project, and authorize the chair of the Board of Directors to sign the approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Lloyd, go ahead.
Just for further clarification, when it's referencing the sign the approvals, I believe there are 4 approval documents, and those were the ones uploaded in Granicus. And also, so it would be authorizing the chair of the Board of Directors to sign the approval documents, and the approval as part of this motion would be to approve the appraisal, which are the approval documents, which are referenced.
And it would be the latest version, because there are multiple versions,
Right.
the latest iteration of the approval of the appraisals.
Yes.
That is my motion.
And still second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0-0. All right. Next, we will go on to 7.3, consideration of proposed findings of fact and decision in the appeal of John Evans / Pillsbury Family Farms Incorporated, AB PL 25-85. Lloyd, this is...
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is continuation or pursuant to your board's action in the above in the referenced appeal of John Evans / Pillsbury Farms, Inc. That's appeal number AB-PL-25-85, in which your board directed staff to draft findings of fact and decision to be submitted for your board's review. Apologize for the following corrections on both on the memo and on the draft findings of fact. On the memo, it makes reference to 2 dates. Both of those dates should state June 17, 2025, because that is the date of when your board provided the action, the intended decision in this matter that culminated to this item before your board today. And on the draft findings of fact and decision, a couple of typographical errors were identified. On page 1, around lines 15 through 16, the reference June 17, 2025 date of the Planning Commission public hearing, that date should be changed to March 27, 2025, because that's when the Planning Commission public hearing for this item occurred. And on page 2, right on top on line 1, where on the sentence where the word "there" with an apostrophe is referenced, that should be changed to "there is," to state there is no indication of willful noncompliance or concealment of unlicensed cultivation. And those are the only 2 corrections to be made, so that for your board's consideration, staff is recommending 2 recommendations actually, to move to approve the findings of fact and decision as amended and authorize the chair to sign. And then the second motion would be to grant the appeal in part subject to certain conditions stated in the findings of fact and decision as amended.
All right, so do you want to go ahead?
Just a brief comment. Thank you very much for encapsulating the fairly long and arduous conversation that we had into this document. I think it's perfectly drafted in what the end result was, so thank you very much.
All right, I'll open it up for public comment. Not hearing or seeing any, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I know this is in your district, but if you don't mind,
Yes,
I
please.
move to approve the findings of fact and decision in the appeal of John Evans and Pillsbury Family Farms, Inc., ABPL 2585, and authorize the chair to sign
As amended.
as amended.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 500. Next, we have
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
There
go
is
ahead.
one other recommendation under that item. It's under sub B.
Oh, sorry.
That move to approve the appeal.
Yes, and that would
Oh,
be,
that's right.
if it pleases your board, move to grant the appeal in part, subject to certain conditions stated in the findings of fact and decision as amended.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 500. All right, I'm good to go on to 7.2?
I think Doug is not here yet. You
Okay,
might want to
so
take
let's
up
do calendars.
calendars.
All right, who would like to start? I can. Wednesday, I have the North Shore Business Association meeting, SLR, I think it's the meeting that we have. Thursday, I have CLOGBA, Clear Lake Oaks Glen Haven Business Association. I didn't get to ask Sarah Ryan, but I think the Thule boat races are this Friday and Saturday, so that's what I'll be probably doing those 2 days and back Tuesday for BOS. I don't think we need to, I don't know if we need to do a CAO meeting. We can. I know we're just doing the workshop for Tuesday, but in case there's something that comes up, I'll hold it there.
Yes, and also I would recommend if you have any questions about the HAPE, take the time that you have on Monday to talk to Lisa if you'd like to beforehand.
Okay, excellent. And then I just wanted to read one thing that I received. Oh, it's not here. So- What's that? Oh, it was, but I know, here it is, I got it. All right, so I wanted to give a shout out because I got this thank you card and it was addressed to me, but I didn't do most of it. I didn't really do a lot of it except for talk about it. So it was dated July 20th, 2025. Dear EJ, thank you very much for the huge cleanup in the hills off Robinson Road in Lucerne. I appreciate you, Karen Kennedy. And I want to give that acknowledgement to the Community Development Department who received the Cal Recycle grant and did the work up in Lucerne, and wanted to make sure that you all know that you're getting thank you cards, and wanted to give that respect to them for the work that they've done in the district. So, all right, that's all I have. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll go a little bit. I'm going to back up a little bit. I know last week I didn't want to speak specifically about NACO. I wanted to wait till Supervisor Pyska was here, so I didn't steal any of her thunder. But the majority of the conversations that were had in NACO were regarding HR 1, what kind of changes that will potentially impact us. I do want to speak about Medicaid, and we have a basic concept of these things. We're seeing direct impacts to our CalFresh as it goes through the state of California, becomes CalFresh. That will be immediate. Then we'll see further cuts as we're moving forward in 2027 and 2028 when it comes to who will be covered and who can apply for Medicaid. The job requirements, those are also immediate, and also based on the state of California and their changes, undocumented immigrants will no longer be able to be covered as well. So that will have impacts to our hospitals, to our healthcare, to our health systems in a variety of ways, because those people are still in our community as a whole that were typically covered in the past. One of the biggest concerns that I came away with was some of the changes that have been occurring in NEPA. There is current NEPA reform that is happening. I'm sure that we've all been asking for some type of reform, whether it be CEQA reform or NEPA reform. It all takes up a lot of bandwidth. For example, data centers have a 10-year exception on NEPA where they don't have to follow local jurisdictional laws on where they will be placed. That is quite a large impact to a community, especially our electrical grid and the environment potentially as well. I've heard from others that there's quite the noise that comes from it, as well as just other issues. So that's one of the concerns. And the other is that there's a lot of almost pay as you play. If you pay 125% of your environmental cost, you can bypass the local jurisdiction, public comment portion, or things like that. So I think we should be paying attention to some of those things, because often we do get state funds, but those state funds go through the federal process. And so I just have some general concerns as to how we're going to be impacted by some of these things. Overall, we're going to have to pay attention to what goes on when it comes to continuing activities with Medicaid. I don't think we're done seeing what they want to do. There's still lots of guidelines that need to be done. I did by chance, I say by chance because I didn't put in for a request, but I was appointed by the new president, J.D. Clark, who is from Texas, as the chair of the health committee. And so happy to take on any topics that anyone related to health, hospitals, and so on wish me to take to the federal platform, because NACO is a loud voice, and mostly we vote unanimously in our health steering policy because we all kind of feel the same way. So I'll stop there, and my calendar is pretty wide open this week other than SLR. I do have some constituents to meet, CSAC meeting as well, and going to our Lake County Fire Protection District meeting. But other than that, I have some fairly wide open until the month starts over. And so I'll be back here on Tuesday ready to go with our 429-page stack of paperwork to go through.
Okay. Let me see. Thursday I think there's the MAHA project will be coming before the planning commissioner at 10 a.m. And I believe there's a zero admissions vehicle infrastructure plan at the Clear Lake City Hall coming up on Thursday as well at 5:30. A grand jury selections at 9 a.m. I also have a Friday night rodeo at 6:30 at my place, and that's for the Middletown Rodeo. I'm going to be meeting with the school board, or the superintendent of the Middletown High School or schools on Monday. I'm trying to get a meeting with Caltrans for this week, and I'll be going over the agenda. This last week, I was in Sacramento with Vice Chair Rasmussen at the CSAC training, our final training, and then I was in Texas most of the week and got home last night for a wedding.
Sure, just one more thing. Yeah, go ahead. I forgot to mention that at NACO, I did join us into the Rural Energy Committee. Just because of the conversations we've had, I thought at least getting my name on there so that we can start receiving information, and happy to pass that on to anybody who wants to be involved and follow that up. But I just wanted to make sure that Lake County was there.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, it was a really busy week in NACO. I had a panel with the Public Lands, had a work day, all day work day. So I was on a panel talking about wildfire and community preparedness and mitigation with another commissioner from Oregon and some folks from New Mexico. And so that was a really great discussion. We, hit on a lot of things that we normally hit on: the need for continued federal investment in mitigation. I think that's across the board, something that everyone recognizes needs to continue. And then later that afternoon, the Intergovernmental Disaster Reform Task Force, which is the NACO Task Force for Reforming FEMA, met. And we talked about a lot of the same things. Again, we actually had the previous head of FEMA talk about his recommendations, which are pretty wild. But we do have legislation going before Congress starting in August. And so there's potentially 2 more fly-ins, one in September and one in October. I'm just not sure what the dates are, if I'll be able to do it. But I at least hope to get to the final one in October. With our recommendations that really include a lot of things that we've been talking about. I feel like I'm just repeating myself over and over, but it's been really important work. There's I think it's about 23 other electeds from around the country, from all different backgrounds and all different types of community, so different political backgrounds. So it was really good that everyone has a strong. We all strongly believe in basically the same things. We need FEMA to stay in place first and foremost, and we need it to continue to invest in disasters and respond to disasters. And there is a lot of suggestions that we've been making to make the organization better. So it's been a really good year of work. Now that we've got the legislation coming together, it's a lot more advocacy. The next step and it's on the 12th. We are having a meeting. It's on Tuesday, so I may have to step out for that meeting because we're going to meet with it's a similar group, but it's all mayors from around the country. And so that way we'll be able to really consolidate our support more effectively as we go into the next session for this legislation. So that was that. And then I also chaired a workshop on restoring the grid during a disaster, and also the work that needs to happen ahead of disasters during blue skies time. And so that was with 2 commissioners and also utilities on how you pre-plan that work and work with the community and communication. So that was really interesting. That was a 2.5-hour workshop with a tabletop exercise. And then came home. And in my Energy, Environment, and Land Use Policy Committee, we did adopt quite a few resolutions that did make it through. But one of them is that currently FEMA does not allow fire suppression infrastructure to be upgraded under their grant programs. And so, we think that that's a pretty easy fix. So we're able to move that one along too, and hopefully we'll get traction with that as well, because that just seems maybe like it was an oversight at one point. This week, tomorrow, I've got my NCO board meeting Thursday, starting at 8 a.m. There is the CMAT, the Community Mitigation Assistance Team, that we did that big project here. I want to say it was in 2021. First one done in California with the help of the U.S. Forest Service. So they're celebrating 10 years of that program. So that is a celebratory 8 a.m. meeting. And the RRA Best Fits Grant meeting, and then I'm attending the Inside Washington NACO call, and then the Resilient Hub Work Group. I'm a strong maybe on that one. And then I might try and make Thule boat stuff on Friday, because I have some time. And yep, Monday meeting with CAO Parker, and then back on Tuesday for our special meeting.
All right. Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, last week I was with Supervisor Owen. We finished the final session of new supervisor training put on by CSAC. They did a nice job, even took us to their facility, and so we have a chance to see it before they start remodel, which is starting anytime now. So that was good. We had Scotts Valley Community Advisory Council meeting last night. I want to thank Water Resources for being there to present about projects in the Scotts Valley area, as well as Sonoma Clean Power was online to do the presentation for that town hall, and that went well. There was some good questions. So let's see, and I'm going to try to go to the grand jury impanelment on Friday. And then I wanted to thank Susan, Johanna, Pam for giving our intern an opportunity to work in the board meeting today. Nancy Rozika, she's one of our interns we hired with discretionary money that I brought forward. So I'm glad to see that program being successful. Thank you, that's it.
All right. That covers the calendar, so it looks like we have one last item, and that is our 7.2. Sitting as the Lake County Air Quality Management District Board of Directors, continued discussion of the draft replacement fee schedule rules. And we have the department here, or the district, sorry. I always say the wrong thing.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry, we have tons of materials just in case you have questions. So, I'm Doug Garrett. I'm the Air Pollution Control Officer for the Lake County Air Quality Management District. And this is a continuation of the fee rule update discussion from the workshop and hearings held on June 10th and June 15th, 2025. And so we provided a couple additional Excel spreadsheets for you with more details, which we'll go through shortly. But as you know, the district's proposing to repeal the existing fee rule, replace them with new fee rule and structure. The new structure is intended to provide clarity and better transparency for district fees. Air pollution has significant costs to the community. In the short term, regulations are expensive, but the long-term medical and health benefits of reducing air pollution is more than tenfold the cost of regulation. More details on this, there's multiple studies of the costs and benefits of the Clean Air Act from 1990 to 2020 that show the benefits of regulation versus air pollution and health costs. What we have currently in Lake County is that local industries emitting air pollution have received significant economic advantage for the past 30 years due to the undercharging of actual costs. The proposed fee increase is to bring all sources emitting air pollution to a point where they are paying the cost of the regulatory programs required by law to regulate their contribution to air pollution within the community. The district has carried many of these programs primarily as a result of short staffing and through ensuring that statewide regulations are avoided in attainment areas. But times have changed, and the legislature and state agencies no longer recognize the unique nature of attainment areas, as many of the regulations that have been passed in recent years require reporting and other things related to climate change, regional air pollution, and not just localized impacts. So as a result, the district is unable to keep up and cannot continue to meet our obligations. Failure to properly regulate air pollution failure to properly regulate air pollution sources increases impacts in the community, increasing medical costs, emergency response costs, and increases illness and early death. The attachments provided for today's workshop show the costs of implementing fees upon a 4-year and a 5-year schedule for your consideration. The fee revenue is calculated to estimate the high-end potential fees paid by existing sources. These tables show the total revenue from the proposed sources for each year of implementation. Below that is the estimated current fee schedule revenue, assuming a CPI of 3%. So that would be with our current fee schedule, we didn't change the regulation, and we just did 3% CPI year after year. The row below that is the estimated permit revenue increase that will result from the new fee schedule. So this is new fee minus the current fee schedule estimates. Below that, we have the estimated salary costs, and this is based on 5 full-time equivalent employees, and this includes the MOU increases, step increases, and other anticipated increases in staffing costs related to our current staffing. So this does not include hiring new staff. This is just with our current staffing levels. Now then, following that, we have the estimated operating costs for the district. These are all the costs except the staff salary and benefits costs. Now, we do assume a 10% increase year over year for the operating costs. And, this includes utilities, insurance, costs to the county, 87, all of the other expenses, just equipment expenses for us have gone up 100% in 10 years. So for replacement equipment. So and we did talk to Stephen Carter, and he did acknowledge and approve of the 10% as a completely reasonable number for us to use. So the last row that you see at the very bottom of the chart is the revenue estimate that would be available for increasing staff levels. This calculation takes into account the estimated actual revenue received from permit fees minus the estimated actual staffing and operating expenses. So the first couple of years will be difficult, and we will be burning through salary savings and probably into our operating reserves over the next few years with our current staffing levels. So as related to new sources, California Health and Safety Code 42311 states every person applying for a permit, notwithstanding Section 6103 of the Government Code, shall pay the fees required by the schedule. So this is where state law is fairly explicit that anyone applying for a permit shall pay the fee that is required by the fee schedule. So existing sources renewing their permits are not subject to this section. And so far in 2025, we've received 17 applications. 15 of them have been for generators. So one was for the carbonizer, and then we have one for an aggregate crusher. So that's the total applications we've received so far this year. This fee proposal is based on cost recovery. The calculations are based on actual time required to perform the work. We are currently not meeting our mandates, and we may be subject to repercussions of the state or EPA. District staff has made great efforts to avoid major fee increases in the past, especially during disasters and economic difficulties in the county, but this is no longer sustainable. Increasing staff levels to perform the functions and having new staff in training is essential to the district's success and clean air for the community. So that's the introductory statement. We have our memo and our attachments, and we can go through and discuss any of the topics or issues that you would like to from here.
All right. Anything else to add? Just teasing. All right, any questions here?
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
I had somebody contact me with this particular question. The gas station permits, this portion of it is mine, are those yearly permits to operate?
Yes,
Are we incurring a fee?
every permit is an annual permit. Districts are limited to issuing a permit on
Okay.
an annual basis.
And then are the native gas stations, do they have to pay that as well?
They do not.
Or the
They do
10
not pay.
days?
They can voluntarily apply, go through the
Right.
permitting but
Okay.
no, they do not.
So that was a question somebody had asked me. And then are you open to, or what would we need to do? One of the big issues with our cannabis is you had stated that the county didn't want to monitor the odors of that. Is that something that we could do and add a fee onto that? I know that we have not done it.
Yeah, that would be up to this board to decide. And we do that's why we put in a bunch of space holders within our fee schedule, because there may be things that we want to or need to or are required to regulate in the future that we don't know of yet. So that would be where we create a fee schedule at that time once we know what those things are.
Okay, and have you looked into any of that equipment? Do you have an estimate on what the cost would be?
On cannabis?
Or odor, yes, in particular.
No, we don't at this
Okay.
point. So
Okay, thank you.
Right. Supervisor Sabatier?
So I appreciate you coming back with the breakdowns that we requested. I feel like the numbers are not exactly correct because I'm the type of person that just recreates what I see to make sure of things, and I did not get 1,499,575. When I went line by line and added them all together, it was around 1.63 or 1.62 million. It was a little bit more than that. But if you look,
If I could interrupt you real quick,
Please.
there was, I forgot to mention this, there was a typo in the document we provided earlier, not the one that was attached to the agenda, but for the last meeting, and that had as one of the aggregate extraction permits, and it's listed under the category 3, permit to operate. It says there are 52 of them, and it's actually 5. So we did correct that in this update, and I forgot to mention that. I apologize for that.
and no worries, I went specifically just from this new one that you had provided us.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
So-
no, and there, I think I had other little slight differences between the last one. You may have taken out some lines or something, because some of them are no longer, some of them are still on there as being dropped. But I'm looking at the 3% increase. Not that I think we need to do a 3% increase. I see where you end up if we are looking at just the 25% or 20% and things like that. But it would appear that we're somewhere in the range between 650,000 and 693,000 estimated current fee schedule without the 3% in the future, because the 3% leads it up to 693. So to go from 650 plus to 1.5 million is a increase of $900,000. And so I'm glad we're looking at it in steps, because the first request was that everything happened in 1 year, and that is a huge increase in 1 year. And that's just for the current people who are active here in Lake County that have facilities that require inspections and fees and annual things. That's an additional $900,000 that we would be asking them for. And I don't know what word to use, but that is monstrous. That's a huge request in one time. I've reviewed, not fully in depth, but looking at their past budgets, they do show some increases of about 3% in revenues. Granted, some of that can be specific grants, so I would like to assume that there's potential for that to continue. I haven't heard of those things disappearing, at least yet, from the state of California. Maybe federally that might be an issue, but I will admit that some of those revenues may have been one-time grants, but still showing about a 3% increase, and then about the similar amount and these are actuals, not the estimates, similar amount in our expenditures. Granted, we've also had some staff savings from having vacancies, and we're looking to fill those up and make sure. I would like to believe that we passed a balanced budget where currently we believe that around the 693,000, which I didn't check to see if that's the revenues we anticipate from the fees in our budget, but I would like to believe that's what was anticipated, that the appropriations are matching what we anticipated to get without necessarily this specific increase being suggested to us. The average increase, I don't have the specifics. I needed to finish counting, but I mean, there's some that are, if you do at the 100% level, there's some that are 3,495% increase. There's some that are as small as, I see 283, I see 132, 108. So there's some that are very small, but then there's some that are enormous in the jump that we're looking at. So I think we have to do a step process in order to get them into a place where they're not going to end up in the negatives. For example, if you look at the 25% increase, they still show that they would be at a negative 165,000. The second year, they would be at 26,000. Now, based on the fact that I'm seeing an increase of about 3 or 4% in trend in their expenditure plan, again, that could be based on expenditures based on grants. This idea of a 10% increase per year is a little tough for me to swallow, that is the average that we should be looking at. So I think that's a little bit of a steep expectation to see that. I know we've closed our offices. I know we've had delays in our processes, But to go from that extreme, which nobody wanted to see, including your department, that's not what you want, to some 3,000% increases and an average probably of around 300. I don't have it in front of me. I'm just guessing. An average of about 300% increase, not including some that were not that priced at all. They had zero. Now they have a number. It's hard for me to tell what that increase would have been. Number one, I want a one-year review to better understand the impact of this, because the numbers that I'm having to see and look at are huge and impactful. But I also want to make sure you have some level of funding to find ways to be more efficient in your process, whether that's technology, in computers, in software, whatever, because I want to save the number of hours that it takes you to be able to do these things rather than increase the cost because it continuously takes you 4 or 5 hours. And sometimes I think technology actually slows us down because we have to do more things. And so whatever that way is, I would love to find it, because I would like to believe that we can find ways to be more efficient in the way that we do things. I'm guessing in your mind, you would like to add somebody to your allocation of positions in order to conquer all of these permits that you're doing, which would then decrease the amount of time it takes. I'm feeling stuck between a rock and a hard place. So in my opinion, I'm not willing to go to the 100% of this, because I don't feel comfortable saying that it might take 4 years, it might take 5 years, but I'm going to go 100% where it's going to be 4,000% increase on 3,500 on some of these. So I'm willing to go 50, 60%, maybe 3 steps in the 5-year plan, 2 steps in the 4-year plan, and then re-investigate where we are. But I also want the 1 year, and I guess I'll leave it there. There's such a huge number that we're being faced with in one time, and I get it, it's from 1996 that no increases have happened. And I hope that's never the case again, so that we don't have to see that monstrous of an increase. But I'm uncomfortable with the idea that today I say that there's going to be $1 million more going into air quality when I'm not sure I've been proven that it's needed at this moment in time. If it was in a 1 year, let alone now we're asking you for 4 or 5 years. And if it's a new, it goes at the 100% right away. And my understanding is I can't get picky and say they follow the old rules or this split rule, which I don't understand, but I'm willing to let that one slide, I guess. But I'm uncomfortable. It's too large of a number for me to swallow. I've tried better understanding. The numbers don't exactly match what numbers I get when I redo the math. And I just, that's my offer.
I did have one more thing. I don't know that I can support the increases to this level either. I know that we do need an increase. However, I feel that we're just getting a little out of control where people are not being able to operate. And that's been my issue in a number of different areas throughout the county. The cost to people to a crematorium for animals or whatever it might be, that it's increased to the point that it's affecting people, and we're driving a lot of businesses out of California because our rates are just too high. I mean, In-N-Out Burger's leaving, you know. They're just, we're not allowing people to become entrepreneurs and open businesses.
Vice Chair?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understood the proposal from Supervisor Sabatier. So are you saying, for example, if we went with, like, just for example, a 5-year plan that's in front of us, that would be essentially 20% a year, then are you saying 50% of that on the first year?
So what I was
I'm not quite understanding.
And I apologize, and thank you for the question. I'll help clarify. If it's a 5-year, I'm willing to do the 3 years, which would be 60% increase. If it's a 4-year that we're looking at, I'd be willing to do the first 2 years where it's just up to 50%. So I'm willing to do half of what's being offered, not to the 100%, which the 4-year, that would make it 100%. If we did a 4 years, if we did 5 years, that would be at 100%. I would be willing to do the half of what's being offered, which would lead us to 50% on the 4-year plan. So which would cut it back to 2 years, which would only reach 50% of the offered total proposal. And if we did the 5-year plan, I offer 50% of that, which let's go up rather than down, which would lead us to the 3rd year, which would be 60% of the proposed 100%. And it shows that it would be in the positive during that year, which is why I'm willing to stop at that year and re-gauge where we are. Because it says on year 2, for the 25% per year increase, they would be in the positives of 23,000. Now, I don't want to leave it there. I want to re-engage and review where are we, how is this impacting things and whatnot. And same thing with year 3 of the 5-year plan. It shows it would be in a positive, and I think at that point we've put them in the right position to have the conversation again, rather than continue it to the 100% where I get uncomfortable. I hope that did not muddy it up any further.
I don't know about just cutting everything in half. I feel like the better thing to do is to say, some of these are too high for us. Can you just bring it back again? Because, I mean, can you really just talk about how you got to some of these? Because some of these are really, really high.
Yeah,
And I think we need to understand that rather than just across the board making cuts without, hearing from you and really understanding the impact of your department and why some of these are so high and why less are so high.
Okay. Yeah, what we did to come up with this fee schedule, I mean, we spent multiple years working on this, and it is strictly based on the time that it takes to issue the permit and the time it takes to do the annual required enforcement inspections, reporting, and everything that goes with each type of the permit. Like gas stations jumped significantly because there were no regulations on gas stations in 1996, and now they are heavily regulated, and the requirements are much more significant, and they require a lot more staff time. So we've had to correct that and come back and say, $300 to $500 for a gas station. I mean, that just gives us enough time to even just read the application and figure out which, certified system they're using. But then we have to go through and evaluate every single piece of equipment they're putting in, make sure it actually qualifies within that system. There's tons of review that goes into it now that did not exist 20, 30 years ago. So there's things like that have changed, and some of these that have jumped significantly, it's because the regulations have changed so much on those sources over the last 10, 20 years that we now have to do a lot more work. I mean, just agricultural diesel engines, that's 2008 is when those became regulated. Generators became in 2005. So, I mean, these are all fairly recent things that have been added to the significant workload. So.
And have you looked at other counties and how they're, I'm sure you have, I'm sure that.
Oh, I've read every fee rule in the state, so. The biggest issue that we have is most air districts use motor vehicle fees to cover a lot of these costs rather than, so yes, our fees are going to be a little bit higher than a lot of air districts, not significantly higher, but most air districts get, of our size, get 600,000 in motor vehicle fees that they use to subsidize all of these programs. So that covers all of their air monitoring, most of their inspections, most of their complaint response, all their administration, all their working with the county, all those costs are covered through motor vehicle fees. So every person who has a vehicle pays $3 to $6 to the air district. We were precluded from doing that for years and years because we were attainment. And then Prop 26 came into place, and then the state changed the law to lift that requirement because they were worried that air districts that were receiving motor vehicle fees would have to stop receiving them when they came into attainment. But they put in their staff report at the legislature that we know this will not help any attainment district because of the Prop 26 limitations. So they acknowledge that it's not going to help us. We're the only ones that were impacted by it. But they did it anyway because everyone else needed it, and they didn't give us the authority to approve it. So that's the biggest issue that we face, is that we don't have that revenue source that every other district in the state was able to implement.
When you start winning, they give you more hurdles to jump over.
Yeah. We were penalized for being attainment.
It's horrible.
No, I know.
So,
Yeah.
but if it's gonna bring in at 100%, 150 million, at 50%, that'd be around, what, 75 million? Or no, 750, 775, 750 million. I mean, thousand, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's still a big increase.
Yeah. Yeah. But, as we've estimated, costs are going up and we have to increase our staffing. I mean, as we've talked before, we have to, because we can't keep people for long term, we're having retention issues. That we can hire people, but they are all new staff. So it takes a year or two to train them.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this constant turnover. So when we lose our full staff, we're shut down for a year while we train people. So we're having to increase our staffing so that we constantly have that training turnover. So we have people in training who can take over the positions should someone leave at that point. So our staffing levels have to increase just for that reason. Plus we have all the additional regulations and requirements that we've been avoiding for as long as we can, but we're hitting a point where, I just got 5 emails today reminding me, hey, we need this. And we have a technical systems audit from EPA coming, which is going to take 3 weeks, 4 weeks of time for our whole staff. So we're basically going to have to shut down for 3 to 4 weeks to deal with EPA over a air monitoring audit because it's so extensive. So there's a lot of things that happen, and there's a lot of regulations. So that's why this is coming to you, and we know it. It should have come to you 10 years ago, but we kept putting it off because 10 years ago we had the Valley Fire. And then, everything that happened after that, we keep putting it off. And we finally hit a point where with that last round of pay increases 3 years ago, we were able to absorb that with salary savings, but we've hit the point now we're trying to staff up. We're against we've hit a rock. We're between a rock and a hard place on this one.
You said, and go ahead.
I know we talked about this, but can you just explain it again? If we're under some sort of a timeline to get this done, or we're going to have to wait another year?
Yeah.
How does that, can you explain that again?
Okay. With the process that we have to go through, because we have to send these to EPA, ARB, the state of California, for review before it can come back to this board for final approval and get it submitted through the state to EPA for inclusion in our SIP, State Implementation Plan, to change our rules. To get that done before fire season so that we can have the burn ban change and all the fire season stuff changed, we have to start working on that right away. So we're at this point, if we need to get those done, we either have to move all of them or we have to move those separately, and then we'll come back to this at some future time. But that's probably will be winter 2026 before we can really get a full proposal back.
Supervisor Sabatier?
So a couple of questions and things. So I'm still in the same place. I know that I'm picking and choosing a random percentage, but it's not super random. It's, again, to follow what you're offering, trusting that your time study, I can't question it because I don't know any more than what you've provided, and that's how you got these numbers. And based on what work is needed in order to accomplish the work that is in front of you on an annual basis, you've provided us a draft for a 4-year plan and a 5-year plan where we can identify where you will be in the positive. And so that is why I chose those numbers, so that we have a pause at that point to have another discussion. And my personal opinion versus my professional opinion is slightly different. I would love to say, let's do 3 years and then do that, but that leaves you in the negative for an extra year versus if I do it on the 2-year. Because on the 4-year plan, you get to the positives by year 2. And I don't know what we are going to have to do on year 2 on a 5-year plan if you're in the negatives consistently as you are showing us on this. And so that is why I am moving towards the 4-year plan and splitting that in half and having a conversation. That gives us 2 years, which maybe I'm asking for the impossible. Maybe we're asking for the impossible, where we ask to add to our lobbyists to lobby for us to get changes and amendments done to Prop 26, where potentially that can get you some funding that will prohibit us from having to increase it any further, because that will take care of that. Again, maybe asking for the impossible, but that gives us a 2-year window to try to get other money that other people are accessing that we're unable to access. And based on where we are in today's world versus when Prop 26 passed, maybe there'll be a better comfort zone to saying yes. I don't know. Maybe financially no, but maybe philosophically yes. And then my last question is, where did you get the $125 an hour? Is that your fee? Is that everyone's fee? Or is that the starting fee for the lowest position in your staff classifications?
That is an average fee for the staff that would be doing permitting and the type of work that's generally under this revenue or this fee schedule. So it's total cost of the staff plus overhead, all the things that are attached with that staff, because our fees pay for everything of the district. Permit fees pay for staffing, overhead, all operational costs of the district.
That's compounded.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was my main point was I think we should do 2 years, again, half of the 4-year plan, use our lobbyists, try to see if we can get the money that other districts are accessing and see if we can get that, and that can bring us back to a conversation at 2 years. How do we plan to move forward? We can bring this back and just say continue on and resubmit that for continuation, or I know that gets complicated and I know I'm making it horrible for you at that point in time, but there's a political aspect to this that needs to be talked about, that this is harsh. It's necessary from your perspective, but from the perspective of the user, it feels like a huge anvil dropped on your head.
Yeah.
We're the only county, right? So maybe it wouldn't be that difficult, right? I'm just.
We did try through
you.
The California Air Pollution Control Officers Association. They did look at the requirements, and they made changes to that regulation again, and they decided not to include the ability for Lake County to implement that fee, because the legislature could have approved it because they have a supermajority.
When was
that would have given you a couple of years ago. That would have given you the ability to implement it if you desired to, and they decided not to take that because it's too political.
We do not have lobbyists.
Right.
Are you saying back a couple of years, 2010?
No, like in the last couple of years. I'd have to look back and see. It's
Scores or couple? Scores? Years or
Was
like
it in the
2 or 3,
2020s?
2020s?
I believe it was in the
Okay.
2020s. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, but I think they changed AB 8, or it was the successor to it. I have to look it up.
Gotcha.
So, but I will, just as a response, just so you're aware of the process, the way the fee rule, the way the laws work for air districts, we adopt a fee schedule. So if we adopt a fee schedule that is 50% of where the target is right now, we cannot come back and increase that by more than 15% per year after that. The only reason we're able to increase it more at this point in time is because we are completely rebuilding the structure. We're repealing the old fee rule and implementing a completely new structure with a completely new mechanism, which allows us a little more flexibility. But coming back and changing the fees and just increasing the fees will limit us to 15% per year. And right now, as I mentioned, the gas stations, it would take 21 years to get to cost recovery for gas stations.
Okay, so we have to adopt the 4 or 5 year plan. as a reconstruction, right?
Well,
And if
you can
we
adopt
did-
whatever you would like.
No, but right, but if we just, and
Yeah.
then after that, you can't increase more than 12%. Is that right? So, I mean, could we
15.
do a longer spread? More than 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, I would, if you'd like to do a longer spread, start it, if we do starting at like at 20% and then do a 15 and a 10 or something, something like that, so that we can, because if we take the longer spread and say over 10 years and do 10% per year, we're going to be, we will not have any reserves left. We will have burned through everything by the time we get to that point of cost, of being at zero cost. So, right. And like right now, we have probably a $50,000 to $60,000 expenditure that we have to make immediately, just because we had a weather station tower fall over. The equipment failed and it destroyed, so we have to replace all that right now. So we're looking at, with our reserves, 50,000 probably coming out in the next month. So I'm just saying, yes, you can, and it would just be nice. It would be nice in order to be able to operate and not run into the negatives, to have a little more of a phasing.
But, okay,
So.
you hear what we're saying, right?
Yes.
We cannot put this on our constituents.
Yeah.
So you have to help us figure out a different way. Like, we can lobby this and try and hopefully maybe get some legislation to help us,
Right.
but we can't adopt this the way that it
Yeah.
is. It's way too harsh. So can you help us figure out something else?
Yeah, but it won't be anytime. We'll have to work through the burn rules first now, is what we'll be doing. So we'll deal with the burn rules, and then we'll have to come back to this, and
think that's what we
we'll
have
have to burn through I mean, at this point, if that's the way we would like to go, then, I mean, would you rather us hire a consultant to do a full study and evaluation and come up with a plan? I mean, that's another option as well. But I will say that the studies I've seen, these numbers would probably be higher. So, we're trying to be as conservative as possible, but, consultants aren't necessarily that way. So I wouldn't want to bring one back that says, burn permits should be $500, because Mendocinos came back and said they should be $1,000. So, because, I mean, that's just the realism of, yeah. So.
Supervisor Sabatier?
I guess I'm still not fully comprehending if we can increase it to whatever, not we please, I don't mean to put it in that way, but to what we believe is the right amount for today's workload and the cost of the work being done. What prohibits us from doing it again in the future?
Health and Safety Code has limitations for doing strictly
Every-
just a fee increase on your existing fee schedule.
Even if you have a nexus study of sorts, which is kind of what you're offering us.
Yeah.
And so what's the timeline until the next time that you're allowed to do that?
There is none. It is strictly limited to if you're only doing a fee increase, you are limited to 15% per year. The only reason we're able to do this is because we're repealing the existing fee rule and we're completely rebuilding a new fee rule with a completely new structure and every permit gets reviewed and they'll be issued new permits. There's a whole process that is going into this that has created an opportunity to increase it to where it needs to be. But but what you have to adopt is you have to adopt the fee schedule of the target where you want to end up, and then the implementation is part of the way it's implemented is a separate thing. So we'll be adopting that as well with that fee schedule, but you adopt the fee schedule as the final numbers that you want to end up at.
And if we adopt a fee schedule that is approved, are we allowed to say this year we don't feel like going all the way to the next 25%? We feel like going to 5%? Is that the maximum that we can make people pay, and we don't have to follow what we said? We can go a little lower, we just can't go higher?
That's correct. There is a mechanism.
Okay.
It's in the rule and it's in Health and Safety Code. So in the first paragraphs of the rule, it defines that we can make that determination that we do not need the funds for the, for the year. And if we have, say we do 3 recruitments and we can't hire anyone, so we don't have staff costs for the year, we can then decrease that permit fee for the following year until we need those funds. Because, if we don't have staff, we don't have funds. We don't need the funding. So, and that's where I would say we would come back with a policy to, so we'd have a reserve policy and, that we would come back with to, get direction.
And, I mean, it's kind of like our appropriations. We're limited of how much appropriations Lake County or other counties can have based on what the Department of Finance tells us we can spend. Things like that. So it would be your limitation, but that doesn't mean it has to be all the way there.
Right.
I don't disagree with the comments made by Supervisor Pyska, but I also don't think we need to keep waiting because we know that you've had problems in the past that we don't want you to have, because that is not the way we want any of our departments to be engaged with by our constituents. And that's not healthy for you or staff to have to deal with that.
Right.
And to say, let's go ahead and go through the burn only to get back to this eventually just means you're going to go into the negatives and start eating up what you don't have in order to continue to do what you're doing. So I know I'm pulling stuff completely out of thin air, but again, aiming at the 50%, if we're at 25 and 25, then the rest can be 10. And then just say, let's meet again in 2 years and see if we made some changes, if it's still necessary to continue, and if we've changed legislation and opened up some other pots of money for you, and maybe the 10% can be decreased. But I don't want you to have to come back, and I know I'm throwing up random numbers, but I'm trying to figure out how to make this work so that you can be in the positive and continue to see an increase, but also we come back and have a healthy discussion of where we will be.
Right. Yeah, that would be completely reasonable, 25, 25, and then 10 or whatever after that. And what
Like
I'll
a
say
7-year
is-
plan.
Yeah, and what it would be is annually we would, as part of our draft budget hearing, we'll give you an update and then where we're at on revenues, expenditures, and everything. And at that point, we get direction. When we come back for the final budget, we have, we make the appropriate changes. So, but that would be our annual update, and discussion would be at our draft budget hearing. And that gives us time before we do all our billing for the year, everything, so that we could have that information and get direction.
I am willing to offer that compromise.
I think I can get on board with that one.
I was fine with the 5-year because I asked for it. The only thing I wasn't really sure on was the $34 for the burn permits, which it states right now, right? And then it says 63, and then it doesn't really give a breakout. It just says 129, 129K.
It almost feels like it's 63 from year one.
Yeah, so,
But yeah.
either way, if that's the consensus of the board, I'll go with the
Yeah.
proposed.
As it's written, that is the way it is. So if you want to implement a 2-step or a 3-step for the burn permit fees, then that's where I would need some guidance from this board.
I just feel like if we go from 34 to 63, people are just going to burn, and they're not even going to try to get a permit. And yeah,
Yeah, I will say that they do that now, just for the 34. But I understand the point. And so it's just, what's the direction of the board and what you would like to see for an implementation of that? Because we come in with what's the final number we need, and then we have to come up with a plan on how to implement it. So, and that's where we're at with this workshop.
so real quick, while we think about it, one more time, let's open it up to the public so that way, if there's anyone that's still tuning in with us, no? All right, just making sure. All right, close public comment, and I don't know where we're at exactly.
I'll just say the burn permits, out of all the increases, while I think it's important that we have burn permits and that people have accessible, it's only 117% difference. I mean, I don't mean to put the only, it's still 100% more, so more than twice as much. But in comparison to some of the others, that is not my big concern of what can or can't be afforded in comparison. Those that are at the 3,000%, that's where my concerns lie and why I want to see that split happening. And I appreciate that you're willing to compromise with us and looking at a different type of plan as well, because I think we need to find that plan, but we also need to figure out how to keep air quality here and not behind in all the work that they're doing, having to close their office again. That's something I would like to eliminate. And so saying no and come back only tells you, please do what you've always done. And it's going to end up with another hard conversation in the future
Right.
as you go back into the same old, same old. So I don't want to do the same old, same old.
Thank you.
The fact that you, that we don't have to increase it, having the ability, but not necessarily increasing if we don't need it, I'd be able to support that.
Yeah, it's a weird way to do it, but it's an automatic increase that we cannot accept. So it's kind of a weird, but that's how it works, yes.
Yeah, having the ability, I still have a huge issues with the increases, of course, but we have to be able to operate. But the fact that we don't have to implement the increases, and especially if we can get the legislation to change here in the state, that would help.
And if I may, I will say that we have spent many years fighting to avoid as many regulations in Lake County as possible. And it's just with the recent changes in the past 5 to 10 years, it's become much more difficult, so. And as you know, they don't acknowledge that we're attainment, so,
They don't really care. Actually, our air is not that clean, according to CARB, that they told me.
yes, so.
All right. All right, where are we at? Lloyd?
Just confirming if staff has received, has understood the direction of the board as far as it relates to these fees, how it's being proposed to be structured now with the 2 years. So,
I was going to confirm,
yeah,
The last offer that I placed on the table was first year 25%, second year 25%, the next 5 years 10% each. So that's a total of 7 years to make the 100%. And every year we during the budget we review what the increase request is to approve those increases with a maximum of the numbers that were just provided.
But, so we're going, with 10%, we're coming in less than, but
The 12.
the 12.
but no, because what we're, the 15% increase limit that's in health and safety code would be 15% increase over their existing permit fee. And the 10% is 10% of the difference from their existing fee to the new fee. So we're looking at a total different thing, so.
If there's ever the need to increase again, because
Yeah.
10 is not enough, we can do an additional 15, whether it's 10% already there or back
I
at
just wanted to
zero.
make sure that we weren't locking ourselves into a lower number, but it
Right.
sounds like we'll
Yeah.
still have that flexibility.
Yeah.
And then that would stay for the life of this approved, adopted fee schedule. In other words, we couldn't relook at that until that was all expired and we were gonna revamp the whole thing again, like we're doing today.
Yeah, if it's part of the rule adoption, then the only thing would be if it needed to be increased sooner than the 7 years.
That's where we would
And
evaluate
that's-
it at each year.
Well, no, because we couldn't, once we adopt that schedule,
Yeah.
then we're stuck to that as our maximum.
With that 15%,
So-
we can't go higher than that within that 7 year.
Well, if we adopt it as 25-25, then 10-10-10-10, that is the implementation schedule that we have adopted with our rule, and that goes to the state EPA, gets approved, federally enforceable. We're stuck with that. We can go less, but we can't go more.
Is this too substantive of a change to make today? Do we need to have a new schedule for the public, for us to adopt?
Well, you're not adopting it today, so this is just a
Okay.
workshop to get direction.
Oh, this is
So,
our workshop. That's right.
Yep,
Okay,
this is
so
just
you
getting
will be-
direction so that we can get the final draft ready, get it to the state and EPA for comment, and then bring it back to this board with all the legal noticing and everything
Okay.
for adoption at a later date, with all the other rules.
And just wanted to mention again, I'm okay in offering that we do the full for the burn permit.
I'm okay with the full for the burn permit too.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
But it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, do expect a couple phone calls this year.
Still cheaper than hauling it.
Yeah, But the dump bins are actually
Like,
fairly cheap
too much.
still, so. So there are the dumpsters you can get that are actually very affordable, so.
it's still more than $63.
It is. But the small dump bins, if you only have a little bit of material, it's not much more.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to spend all day burning. You can fill it up over a week and when you have time and
So do you
haul it
have
away.
direction? Do you think we're at a good place? I think everybody,
Yeah.
not everybody, but the board seems to be amenable to what you propose, Supervisor Sabatier.
I hope I didn't make a
10,
mistake.
10. We okay with that? Is that the direction we want to go?
Mhm.
I was good at 5 years and all that, so that's what I asked for.
Yeah, I was good with the
Yeah.
5 years before, so this is okay.
Okay.
All right,
Well,
looks
thank
like
you
we
very
have
much.
it.
We'll
Anything
on
else,
this.
Lloyd, maybe, that we might have missed? All right, just want to make sure. Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
And in about a month and a half or so, you'll see us again.
I think that covers everything on the agenda. And so we will now adjourn. I don't see the time, so, at 4:37.